today are going to talk a little bit about their experience and expertise in ways for you to grow, which obviously right now we're seeing a lot of people that are having to pivot not only in roles and what their work is, but also their talent needs and also their information and education needs for their roles. And so we wanted to kind of talk about that before everyone kind of runs to grad school or thinks about getting a certificate. Like, what are some maybe ways that you could do that without having to do a formal program, and then also some funding opportunities. So we're excited to have Chance Smith, Brad Stevens, and Charles Wilcox with us, and I'll let them introduce themselves and a little bit about kind of their knowledge in the area, and then we will open it up for question and answers. Please feel free. We love to have great engaging chats in the chat box. If you have a formal question, the best way is to use the question and answer feature, but we will also be watching the chat for that. And we can address it to the panelists. So if you already have a question you know of, go ahead and put it in there and we can address it as we get to it. And please feel free to put your name and where you're from and engage in the chat as well. We love being able to meet people and hear their stories, which is what we miss so much in person. So I will just have, if you want, Chance go first, and then Charles, and then Brad, so I don't have to interject on the order there. And then excited to hear from you guys.
Oh, well, so hey, everybody. I'm Chance Smith. I was born and raised in Roanoke, Virginia. Ended up going to college at Radford University. I graduated in 2012. I took the corporate route right after graduation. I have a background in sales and marketing across a number of industries. I took that route with the thought in mind that I was going to run my business one day. So I always wanted to learn how different industries work. I take pride in connecting with people and connecting people. So building those meaningful relationships. And I just enjoy waking up every day, working for something that I truly believe in. And my goal has always been to give people the same level of access to information and experiences. And I believe that's first done through access to the internet and mobile devices, but more importantly, arming people with the knowledge to really understand the information and make those connections. And so our mission as a company at Go Now has been to give people access to live the life that they want to live. So that led to my best friend and I founding Go Now 3 years ago. It's a tech company which brings musician-driven experiences to your space. Essentially, it's an on-demand service that brings you your own personal musicians to your location for any type of gathering or event. And we're set to launch our application in the App Store at the end of this year. And so I'm super excited about that. And again, I'm just very thankful for you all having me here today.
Great. My name is Charles Wilcox. I am based in Santa Barbara, California. And a little bit about my history. I've been with LinkedIn, specifically LinkedIn Learning, for the past 7 years. Prior to LinkedIn, I was with lynda.com, which is a company that LinkedIn bought. And I agree with you, Chance, on the continual learning aspect in life. Very necessary for wherever you are. And right now, because of COVID, there's a lot of people who are unemployed and looking to get into new jobs, and they may not have the necessary skills for that new job. What I'm hearing from a lot of the clients that I work with, I only work with in the government space, including workforce development and government agencies within the DC Mid-Atlantic region, and DC, Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, I should be specific. And what I'm hearing from a lot of workforce development boards and just a lot of people in general is that they may not be going back to their former careers. So it's a good time right now during COVID to get the new skills. Now, where do you get them? You can go online, look at job listings and see what their requirements are and see if you match and apply with some of those. Or you can take a step back and work with LinkedIn Learning to take some courses on how to get those skills necessary for your job. So I don't want to go on too long with my introduction, but I've had some transformation even before coming to LinkedIn. I worked in the advertising industry for a long time. and worked at Six Flags theme parks in my first job back in the day. So it's very possible to transition from different careers. You're not always stuck in one particular one. So I'll stop there. Thanks for having me today.
Very good. Well, I suppose it's my turn. I am Brad Stevens. I'm with the Western Virginia Workforce Development Board, also known as Virginia Career Works Blue Ridge. Interestingly, my career has kind of been all over the map. So I studied religious studies because no one told me you were supposed to major in something that could get you a job coming out of college. That probably would have been helpful. But have since worked as a farmer and management at Starbucks, managed a co-working space here in town, which I believe we may have run into each other through the collab many moons ago, although I don't, I'm bad with faces, which is probably why I wasn't the best at running a co-working space. But anyway, now doing this as well as picked up a master's in forestry along the way. So perhaps too varied in some ways. But the specific thing that I wanted to share with folks today is about some of the opportunities that we have to support some of those retraining opportunities. As Charles has mentioned, that there's all kinds of opportunities out there at this point to find new skill sets and develop them during this time. We do see a lot of folks, particularly in industries we know are not going to come back in quite the same way that they might have before. So the retail industry, the restaurant industry, who knows if and when these industries will ever be back to what they were pre-pandemic. There's a lot of folks that were employed and made good careers in those fields beforehand that may not have opportunities there moving forward, or may want to explore other opportunities at this point. And so we at the Workforce Board have programs that can help you pay for that training, can help you find and identify what those career tracks may be, and then eventually move into occupations in those places. So we keep track of what and who is hiring in the area. So we know, for instance, that there are a number of major manufacturers that are hiring in the area. So if people are interested in moving into those kind of careers, we know, there are also a number of office positions available. We keep in touch with these things, and there are a number of trainings through our local community college systems, through things like LinkedIn Learning, through other opportunities that we can potentially help direct you to, and then help pay for some of that training. So anyway, that's kind of the broad brushstrokes.
Awesome, thank you. Well, we have a first question, so I wanted to go ahead and get your opinions on it. So interested in kind of the opinion with a 55-year-old, kind of no formal degree or training, been in data analysis for about 10 plus years and was laid off from COVID, thinking about getting certifications and or maybe an associate's degree or something, and what financial options or what do you see as being kind of the big ones right now to pursue? So whoever wants to try to take that, feel free. Or
well, first off, I'll say that from our perspective, we have certain pots of funding. So our funding is available to anyone, regardless of whether or not you've been laid off. So really everyone on this call is eligible for our WIOA programs, but there are special assets available for those folks that have been laid off. And there are a number of certifications and additional trainings that may be available through the community college. I'm not 100% sure on the data analytics side from my understanding of what total programs are available, but the good news is that even if it's not available at a local school, we may be able to connect you to an online or digital program to take some of the next steps there.
Yeah, I'll jump in there from excuse me, from a LinkedIn Learning perspective. I just pulled up data analytics from our course catalog, and we have over 658 courses, 648, excuse me, courses on data analytics. And one thing I want to point out is there are certification prep programs to ensure. I'm not sure of your background in data analytics, but we do have certification prep that can help you get ready for any type of certification that you're interested in taking. So that in combination with what Brad was mentioning just a moment ago, in working with VCW on figuring out the best path if you are looking to bolster some of your skills there. And later on, when it's appropriate, I'm happy to bring up our LinkedIn Learning site to show you that type of content like I said, when appropriate.
Yeah, and then my last thing, I don't have much to add to that. But I would say do a lot of the work as far as yourself, learn about like the industry that you're trying to get into, and then really educate yourself on the topic through like podcasts, articles, books, and really get privy on like the industry that you're trying to enter as far as doing data analytics within, so you can come in not only with the certification but also that strong knowledge.
Great. Thank you, guys. When it comes to kind of making this decision, particularly maybe early in a career about graduate school versus kind of chasing certifications, what do you see? Obviously, Chance, in some of your work with your colleagues, and then and thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, and then Brad and Charles also as you're looking in the spaces that you work, kind of as you're discerning which one to do, what are some factors you may want to consider when you're looking at entering a formal program?
Yeah, and so I think when you're really looking into programs, first look at like what's important to you, and that will really help your decision. As far as looking at like certifications and different programs, I would look and see like who is successful in those roles, and I would reach out to those people in those roles. If you look at a third of the jobs that are out there currently, um, they're all off referrals. So that just says that there's power in relationships, and building those relationships outside of before you even go to get a certification or go the graduate school route. Start connecting with those people now to really learn from them, and then go from there. Because in the tech space, it's the same thing, regardless of whether you have the school experience or the certification, or you've worked in the field for 20 years, it's still based off relationships. And the more that they see that you're putting an effort to learn about what they do personally, is going to make you a stronger candidate for whatever you're trying to do. Whether it is, okay, maybe I do need to go to grad school, or maybe I do need to get this certification because I talked to 5 people in this industry and that's the route that they took, and look where they are.
I would echo that exactly, what Chance said a moment ago. Networking is very important, and ensuring that the work that you've done, your skills, are being shared with those people that you connect with, because that's where there's going to be opportunities for you to further your career in that realm. Also, of course, I'm talking a lot about LinkedIn, but putting those skills on your LinkedIn profile so that you are more visible to recruiters who are looking for candidates with that experience.
Yeah, and I suppose to add another layer in here, I think it often depends on where exactly you want to wind up in the long run. A lot of places will pay for you to go get whatever degrees or certifications you need at some point. So it may behoove you to get in at a lower level, and if you show aptitude, a lot of places will be willing to invest in folks in that way. But also, I would suggest from a to echo Chance's point on the reaching out perspective, I think that goes doubly for graduate school stuff, that all of these professors are used to folks reaching out to them before they enter a course. And so I would highly encourage folks to make sure that whoever they've identified whoever they want to work with before they consider a graduate school course. And then on the certification side, I do think from our perspective, we will work with folks to identify what those courses will be. So anybody that comes through our programs gets connected with a career coach who will help you figure out what exactly the options are, what careers are available, and can help you look at job postings and things to ensure that for whatever career track you're going to go down, that there's a positive goal at the end. The last thing we want to see is someone investing hours and years of their time in a program that may never result in meaningful employment afterwards.
Awesome. All great advice. So as we're looking, I think, I mean, we want to be honest with COVID and looking at those that are needing to do career pivots from maybe not as much of a technological space to a more technological space. What's a great place do you guys see as to start? To see kind of, it can be overwhelming if you've been from a people career to go into a technological career. What are a couple of good places and or certifications to kind of get your feet wet about figuring out what type of technology, versus others that you might have some interest or aptitude in?
That's a good question. I think one of the key things has already been mentioned earlier is taking a look at the jobs that are in your area that are in technology and figuring out what types of skills are necessary for you to get into that job. And then from there, we've already discussed, Chance was talking about reaching out to people who are in that industry and just be curious, connect with some people and say, I'm someone who's been in this field. I'm interested in learning more about what it takes to work in cloud computing or in, supply chain management. I'm just throwing those out as potential topics. And I say that I know Amazon's in Northern Virginia, so it may not be appropriate for your area in Roanoke. But anyways, as an example there, and being really curious, and then taking that job description and looking at the skills required, and then hop on Google and look at skills necessary to get you there. And then of course there's great tools on LinkedIn as well, to LinkedIn Learning and on LinkedIn in general, to see how you can get those skills to move into that new career type.
Yeah, I would kind of second what Charles said. I think tools like LinkedIn are so vital, just because there's a lot of connections that can be made and just a lot of knowledge that's out there. And then I also say YouTube as well. You can learn anything through YouTube, honestly. And now with everything being virtual, like getting involved in virtual meetups and speaking engagements as far as this one, online forums, guest blogging on sites, and really having your footprint out there. So if you are entering, let's say, like the digital marketing space, and you already have your footprint out there on certain sites that people from this industry normally would view, that makes yourself more marketable when it's time to get a job or to move up in a role.
Yeah, I'll very much second the YouTube piece of that. I have a small side company in which I develop websites and do podcast production, which has all been learned through places like LinkedIn Learning and YouTube. And I would kind of encourage folks to think that same way about it, that there are, I mean, you can cut your teeth in a lot of free resources out there that are, such as Code Academy. There are ways to get in with LinkedIn Learning, these kind of places. There are other kind of free certifications on some of those things. But what I'd encourage folks to kind of think about, if you're thinking about that tech space as an option, is it's very much a do type thing. Make sure you're doing it as well, that you're not going to want to, first off, a lot of these companies are going to want to see stuff on there. And Aaron and Katie can tell you that most of the openings for programming and those kind of things, they want several years experience in the area. And so if you can provide that you've on side hustles or side projects been able to collate that amount of experience, that makes you a very compelling candidate moving forward. And it also helps you identify whether you actually really enjoy that work or you're just it's kind of mind numbing, because it is, some of it is awful if you don't like that kind of work. So
But it sounds like it can really pay off, Chance, right?
It definitely can. Definitely can.
Yeah, so Chance, actually, I was going to ask you to follow up a little bit about kind of the entrepreneur side. So, maybe you're in a position, if some of our attendees are in a position where they might be thinking, okay, now I really do want to embark on working for myself. And I'm sure your idea came pre-COVID, but I don't know if I think from our conversations it was, but thinking about kind of becoming an entrepreneur and what the challenges and the risk reward of starting kind of your own way might be.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think this route is for everyone. It takes a special person to do so. And I think hitting that success level, it takes another level of personnel as well. When entering this space, it's something that it's a lot of unknown. So it's a day-to-day learning experience. You're meeting with people, you're caught in your own mind. But I think if you have the willpower and really have the mental to navigate the space, that's going to get you further than anything else, than your skills or anything like that. Because if you have the willpower to do something in the entrepreneurial space, it's going to take you further. And I've seen that myself too. Like, you wake up on certain days where you may not feel like doing something, but knowing that your life pretty much depends on this, it's gonna drive you to get up and do those things. And as far as like I was talking about earlier with YouTube and Google and things like that, as long as you're doing continuous learning and teaching yourself skills and staying sharp, if this doesn't work out for you going the entrepreneurial route, you're a lot more marketable going this route, knowing that you built something to a company, than you are just getting into a regular position. Because you learn a lot within a short amount of time than being in a role where you're learning maybe one or two skill sets that's based around like sales. Then you might go the entrepreneurial route and learn finance, legal, marketing. You might do some development, all of these different tasks that's going to make you a lot more marketable at the end. And so I think if somebody's in this space, just double down on it and really invest in yourself.
Yeah, Brad or Charles, anything to add to that? I know, Brad, as you embark in the dual.
Well, I think that's spot on. I think you will become much more marketable, and it's even, I kind of hedge my bets in some ways. I'm very much a generalist, and I support and find that to be the path that's most interesting to me. But there are certainly other paths that require more specialization. So, I mean, if you can find a space that you can drill down into deeply, while also maintaining a general knowledge, I think that's kind of the ideal way to go. And thinking about the additional part of Chance's story there, I think, is also, and I would imagine this is true, Chance, that you figured out which parts of that you enjoy and which parts you don't enjoy so much. And so that will also be informative for whatever comes in the future. You'll know better about yourself, about what you want to do moving forward.
Yeah, and I would just echo the importance of having a growth mindset. Things change so fast. There's 50,000 skills in the work world today. And I can tell you from my experience working at LinkedIn, what I was doing 7 years ago when I started with lynda.com and what I'm doing today and how we do things, it's always changing, and usually for the better. But staying up with that and learning new, whether it's a software program or a particular feature, LinkedIn is adding new products all the time. On the LinkedIn Learning side, we're always adding new content. There's 16,000 courses on LinkedIn Learning right now. We add 50 to 60 new courses every week. And I'll be honest, as a sales rep, I can't remember 16,000 courses. And every time I'm talking with people about what they're looking for when it comes to training, I'm furiously looking for what are we doing in that space? So keeping that growth mindset and not saying these are the skills necessary for that job and that's all I'm ever going to do there is not the right way to go about it. And you're going to be able to stand out if you do have that growth mindset when you're going into a job.
Charles, what are some of the most popular courses?
Yeah, great question. The number one course consistently, I mentioned I've been here for 7 years, on LinkedIn Learning. Number one course is Excel.
Hmm.
Yeah, a lot of people taking that.
I mean, that makes sense. Like, I think whatever job you're in, you need technology skills, even if you're a project manager or a social worker. It doesn't really matter what your position is. You still need to be able to
Yeah,
use
yeah.
technology.
But a lot of technical courses, IT project management is really big. SharePoint, Microsoft products, Office 365. What's growing a lot are soft skills. And what I mean by soft skills are topics like time management, how to lead effective meetings, leading without authority, conflict resolution. And these are soft skills topics that can help anybody, no matter where you are in your career. If you're in IT, if you're in human resources, marketing, et cetera, these are core skills. And again, going back to the dynamic nature of skills, these change as well. During COVID, some of our content around diversity, inclusion, and belonging has seen a lot more usage. A lot of people taking those types of topics, which we all have to be aware of, right? With what we've been through in the past year. So, yeah.
Yeah, Nancy in the chat says she's a project manager looking to get a PMP certification. There's so many ways to get that certification. It's so highly looked upon. I know LinkedIn has it. There's some local options too, Brad.
Yes,
Virginia Western, Virginia Tech.
Virginia Western's PMP is on our approved provider list, so we could help pay for that. We could also help facilitate, if you're taking it through LinkedIn, we could help pay for the test, which of course is going to be an additional component on the end of that. So those are both options. Yeah. So I'd be intrigued to know, Charles, when I've gone on LinkedIn Learning in the past, I've found that there's often a number of courses that might meet my requirements. So I kind of wonder how you would suggest folks figure out which exact course would meet their.
Yeah.
I imagine there's more than one PMP course, for instance.
Yeah.
You could sign
Yeah,
up.
there is. Absolutely. Great question, Brad. So I put a link in the chat for our certification programs, and that ties in nicely with what we're talking about with project management. So we have an entire learning path on project management. Now, we're not the certifying body for it, but we're certification prep. So that's a great resource. I think the data analytics question earlier by someone, that will be covered in there as well. Some of our certification prep learning paths include CompTIA, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Project Management, which I just mentioned. I believe there's about 25 in there. So that's definitely a good initial resource to go through that and look at the certification prep content that we have. And then from there, I love the search bar on LinkedIn Learning. Even if you don't have a subscription, you can go in and type in a particular discipline, something you're interested in learning, and it's going to bring up all of those courses that are related to that topic. And if we have time during this, I'm happy to do a quick demo to show you just that.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions in the Q&A. Katie, you want to take
Yeah,
this?
sure. That sounds good. So yeah, and we're hopeful to get to that, Charles. I made you a co-host just in case. But so advice in choosing the right graduate program. So right now, this attendee's in a business development role for a behavioral health agency. To be in a leadership role, individuals hold typically a master's in counseling or social work, but if they don't want to be a counselor, is potentially pursuing an MBA better in the long term. I know this might not be our space, but maybe speaking a little bit to kind of the master's degree and choosing which program you want. I'll kick it off a little bit. Maybe you guys can, from my career advisor role at Virginia Tech for a little while, I think the biggest thing is looking for the skill set that you want from that degree. So for example, a master's in counseling, you may not, counseling education, you may not ever sit to be a licensed counselor, but you really do learn a lot about one-on-one interviewing, motivational interviewing, how to have a conversation and draw out information. So if that's something that might be more in you might be able to utilize that more in your role, that may be a more benefit to you. potentially even social work. A lot of times you're talking about policies and systemic change. And so I think looking at the really actually doing what I think some people don't want to do is just look at the courses that you would be taking, like not thinking about it as a degree, but look at the course catalog, look at what you would take, how you could make that degree together, and then what skill set is better for the type of work that you would be doing. So I think sometimes we look at these degrees as one instead of looking at them as a culmination of 8 or 12 courses and the information you're going to be able to get out of those. So that would be my past life career counselor hat, but also would love to hear from our panel as well.
Yeah, I wonder even if a master's in healthcare administration might be helpful. Depending on the type of agency, it might be interesting to have that perspective too.
That was my thought. And I think that there are multiple ways to kind of think about that, is that those kind of healthcare administration degrees, but think about, who, when you look at folks, are there folks that have other degrees that are in those kind of positions elsewhere? What are their certifications? But also, you can think tangentially as well. I mean, I think there's a pathway, if you go into with an MBA with a finance perspective and you plan on going, you're going to be the CFO somewhere and potentially transition into a leadership position. I think that, those are the kind of questions that can take you there. But, there may be alternative paths, but there probably are also advantages to thinking about why it is that those are usually the traditional paths that people wind up in those positions.
Yeah, and potentially you could think about, do you want to stay in that sector and that industry long term? Like Brad was saying, if you have a transferable type degree that's not as specific, you might be able to roll into working for Carillion or for Lewis Gale. There's some other options out there in kind of a similar space. But Charles, it looked like you had something on your mind.
I don't really have too much else to offer except for the blended learning approach. When you are going through a degree program, LinkedIn Learning is in, if I remember correctly, I believe it's about 85% of higher ed universities. So it is a complementary tool. So I've heard, great success stories about students who are working through towards their degree that use LinkedIn Learning as a complement to what the instructor is teaching. And in some cases, what they call the flipped classroom, as in their professors may ask them to take a course on LinkedIn Learning before they come in for a course on a particular topic. So that's, the blended learning approach.
Yeah, I got to know lynda.com when I was in my master's program at Virginia Tech. Now that it's through LinkedIn, does Virginia Tech and does Radford, do we know if some of our local universities have?
Yeah, I believe they are. I would have to check with the higher education team. We're segmented. I'm in the government space.
Yeah, sure.
But I can find that out for you if
I
you
have
like.
a feeling they probably do.
Yeah.
Awesome. So just a technical question, and then we'll get into we have 2 questions here, but Brad, specifically for you, are there qualifications for the PMP certification test through Virginia CareerWorks?
So the way that would kind of work for us, folks would come in, they would, meet with one of our career coaches, they'd have some kind of conversations. And if it proves fruitful, we'll go through an enrollment process, which will involve a discernment to make sure that whatever we're helping with is actually the career path that folks would want to go down. So that's the Virginia Wizard, I think we shared out I shared a minute ago, that's kind of you would take that to make sure that we're not going to send you to welding training if what you're really interested in is marketing, because that's probably not going to be a good idea. So that would be the kind of steps. And then we would say, all right, so given what you're looking for, you think of PMP, whatever it may be is the right thing. And then in terms of being an individual, like what your qualification needs to be, any adult coming into the program would be potentially eligible for that. It would just depend upon that conversation you have with that career coach about what your goals are and how to get to those places. But if you go in with that as your goal, that's probably a heads up that you're going to be in a pretty good place and can move pretty quickly for that.
Awesome, thank you. And then maybe Chance, if you want to start this one first, but because since you did move away, how have you kind of found motivation to move away, to attend graduate school? And maybe we can expand that also to chase whatever dream that is, when lacking support from close friends and family, or potentially moving away from that support.
Well, I don't listen well, so that's that's probably the simple answer to it. But no, you really can't worry about what everybody else has in store because you all might not have the same plan. Um, Honestly, you have to think about what's important to you at the end of the day. And if it's something that you want to pursue and you want to do, if you start the movement, people will follow you. So you might not get the support now, but when you move and start doing what you need to do and invest in yourself, like I mentioned earlier, then you'll see the support start to roll in from your family and your friends, and even more people than you thought may have not supported you at the beginning. So yeah, that's the simple answer.
One of the women that was on our experience leadership committee, she just moved away to Maryland to go to grad school, and she's been gone for 3 months, I guess now, and it sounds like she's doing well. But yeah, it is an intimidating time to move away for grad school, I feel like. But we do hope you come back to Roanoke though at some point. We'll support you and be your friends to move back here.
Absolutely.
I will share just on the graduate point. It is. I was had it described to me, and I think this is a great definition of what graduate school is like, is it's infinite work. You are never out of work to do in graduate school. So you have to be very careful, particularly if you're concerned about moving to a new place and things like that, not to let yourself drown in that environment. So it can be overwhelming, but it can also be really empowering to be in a place surrounded by people that are doing amazing things that are very similar to what you want to be doing. So that's the flip side, is that there's also usually a great number of really interesting people there as well to connect with.
Yeah. So Charles, you want to go ahead and spend a couple minutes, show us a few things that maybe LinkedIn Learning has, and then we can wrap up with a couple questions that people might have at the end?
That'd be great. Let me go ahead and pull up LinkedIn Learning. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so I mentioned earlier that LinkedIn Learning has 16,000 courses in our online content library. The 3 areas we focus on are computer software, creative, and business skills. So what I'd like to do is show you a couple of course titles and show you how our video format is set up and show you how to navigate to content. Right here, you can browse the entire library on those different sections that I mentioned: business, creative, and technology. Business is really going to be the computer software side of the house, our soft skills that I mentioned earlier. Some of the topics are customer service, leadership and management, professional development, and then information about small business and entrepreneurship. Creative, if you think of Adobe Photoshop, we have, I believe, close to 800 hours of Adobe Photoshop content, and then graphic design, user experience, video, web design, all within that category. In technology, that's where you're going to find topics like data science, the data analytics question that someone asked earlier, IT help desk, security, more the back end side of things. I like to go ahead and just go to the search bar here. This is my friend, and I type in a particular topic. One thing that's going to be very relevant for all of us, work is your home and home is your work lately during COVID. We have a lot of great content around making that work well. So what I'll do is go ahead and play you a course introduction to give you an idea of how our videos are shown. And then I'll go over some of the details of the video player.
So one of my favorite things about not having to work in an office, besides not going into an office, of course, is I get to work from awesome places, like cool coffee shops, co-working spaces, or even while visiting friends or family. And not only does this freedom allow me to be mobile and check out new spots, but it also helps me to avoid feelings of isolation or loneliness, which I would not feel if I were in an office surrounded by people. But you want to keep in mind that while this is a nice perk, staying productive is going to be key to making this sort of working style work for you and your employer. So there are a few things you'll want to know. First things first, if you're going to be mobile and working around town, you need to have a portable office, which means portable gear. Imagine all those things you would have in an office and fitting them into your backpack. And here's a breakdown of what you'll need. Step 1, your laptop.
Okay, I'm going to pause there. So that's a brief introduction to this course. A couple of things I want to highlight on our video player here. There is information about the author, the background. We only have experts authors who are known in their field for the subject matter that they're teaching. So the authors can be people from Apple, from Google, from Microsoft, or university professors that come into LinkedIn Learning to teach their course. It's an hour-long course, a brief intro to what they're going to cover. There's a Q&A function, so you can ask the LinkedIn community a question that you have or a comment that you have on the course or the topic. And then the author will also engage and answer questions as well. I really like the notes feature. So if you're doing a pivot table in Excel and you want to capture where that is in the video, you can simply type in that note and it'll timestamp it so you can come back to it for later use. We call that just-in-time learning. The transcript is available as well. People learn differently. Some people audio, visual. This is a transcript that we'll highlight as the author is teaching. A couple things over here. You can speed up the video. You can slow it down. Closed captioning is available. Basic settings, video quality, etc. And then full screen. So that was a soft skills topic. I'll go ahead and put in something like Office 365. That's not the actual one I wanted. So you can see here that there's 18 courses related to Office 365. Also want to highlight here, there's 3 different levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And then you can filter down by, software topic, continuing education credits, the certification preps that I talked about earlier. So if anyone has any questions about content or would like me to navigate to any particular title, go ahead and put that in the chat if you'd like. Or if any of our panelists want to see a topic, either way. Erin, I'm going to pick on you. What's a topic that you're most interested in?
As far as like technical skills, I've never really had a huge interest in being a pure technology person, but really user experience I think is really intriguing. And so I've actually looked at courses on LinkedIn Learning for user experience.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for sharing, and sorry for
Random.
Sorry for putting you on the spot there.
No.
But it's a great example of, with a library as large as this, there's going to be varied interest. So you can narrow down to exactly what you're looking for. So let's just take a look at this course introduction.
Getting the user experience for a product right should be everyone's job. Product managers, project managers, developers, testers, marketers. Everyone has a role to play in making sure that the product solves users' pain points in the best way it can and communicates well exactly how it does that. But because it's such a big job, there are several specialist careers that focus on user experience rather than on other aspects of product development. These are user research, interaction design, visual design, content, accessibility, localization, globalization, and data science roles.
I do like that it shows you like what to do with it.
And different individuals who each have just one of these jobs.
And there's also exercise files included, so you can practice as the author is speaking. An example of that was a pivot table that I mentioned a moment ago. If someone is wanting to learn how to do a pivot table, they can watch a 2-minute video and actually practice as the author is going along.
Yeah, like Brad mentioned before, you enroll in a master's degree in user experience. It's good to really explore what you're getting into, and if you think it's something that you'll actually enjoy versus jumping into something and then a year after you've spent $30,000 to $60,000 really realizing you don't want to do that.
Yeah. Lastly, I want to highlight, we do have a great course on creating a LinkedIn profile. It's called Rock Your LinkedIn Profile. Highly recommend that to anyone who doesn't have a profile. It's definitely going to be a good assistance to you when you're searching for a job.
Awesome.
So very brief introduction to LinkedIn Learning. Happy to answer any questions, but just wanted to show that to you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
So I think we have a couple minutes left if anyone has a question or would like to ask one more. Any comments? We're happy to have. And people are putting their LinkedIn profiles in the chat, so that's great. We can follow up with those and make some LinkedIn connections and hopefully help each other connect for roles in the future.
Great.
I had one thing to add.
Yeah, and I think we have one. Yeah, go ahead, and then we have one more.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we've been talking a lot about like taking courses and like kind of making yourself sharp with your skills and making your talent a lot better than what it already is. But even if you look at companies, they have a larger mission outside of like just a talent pool, and they're looking for great people. So I would say like somebody like us as well, like we're a tech startup, but we're not only looking for great talent, but we're also looking for great people first and foremost, because looking to build the right culture fit within, and then we want that to pour across all aspects of the business. So if you're out selling or if you're developing, like this builds a company culture where it's infectious, that brings more people on board. And I just think that's very important outside of everything that we've discussed today.
I think that's an amazing point, that a lot of time, and to Brad's point, if you can get in the door through your skill set, then there's so many opportunities for you to learn the technical piece. And we talk about that so much in our work. And I think employers, so it's great that you brought that up as someone looking to hire, that becomes the most important thing. Well, as we wrap up, I think there's some questions about following up one-on-one. So do you guys want to share either out loud or in the chat, like any kind of contact information and how you'd want people to contact you if they do want to follow up one-on-one with any questions?
I'd be happy to communicate through LinkedIn. I put my profile link on the page, either through a message through our messenger platform, or if you want to connect with me and we can chat through there. Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, I'm putting my email in the chat right now. What I will warn folks is that so my particular role with Virginia Career Works is on the business side. So I deal mainly with businesses and connecting for opportunities there. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but it may be a one conversation that I point you in whatever direction is the right one in terms of connecting with a career coach or whatever the next steps might be.
Is there a career coach that you could direct them to?
So that you can,
best to reach to you first.
Best route is probably through me first. Normally I would say you can come to our center, but it's not a great time to come to our center. We're not really going to let you in the building for much other than job search type stuff at the moment.
Yep, and then I'm more than available on LinkedIn, so send me a message on there. I just put my link in the chat as well.
Great. Awesome. Aaron,
All right. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for being with us and providing this information. There's so many options out there. I feel like it's kind of hard to figure out one route. When I was thinking about grad school, I would say 4 or 5 years ago, it felt overwhelming. So I did some short certificates, did some lynda.com at the time now, which is LinkedIn Learning, and it did really help trying to find my direction and the path to be on. And Katie and I are both nerds. I'll call us nerds. And we still love to learn, and still, even if it's not something that's directly related to what we do every day, we touch a lot of different subjects. So we get to continue to learn every day. And so thank you guys. Feel free to reach out to Katie or I, or to any of our great speakers today. Going forward, I want to share a little bit of news about the Experience 2021 conference. We are planning for a mostly virtual conference the first week of March. We're working on a 2 to 3 day concept, really working hard with our committee. We have a couple committee members in here with us today, but really trying to nail down what's going to be most effective, what's going to add the most value. So yeah, we'd love to hear your ideas on what you would like to hear. The theme this year is going to be endurance. So really looking at how we can all stay motivated, be resilient during this time, look to the future, new opportunities. So we would love for you all to attend the conference and be a part of it. So more to come on that subject. And if you're interested in the conference and you're not on our newsletter right now, make sure to email either me or Katie, and we can make sure you're on the list. Well, thank you all again, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, group.
Thank you.
Thank you.